Did you like that smooth transition?
Smooth as silk.
Okay,
This
do we have
is
to
for you.
I'm getting tired of holding up books
This
because I
is
don't
for
feel
you.
well.
I figure we could all hold one up.
Well, anyway, Elena was, hope you can, I think she's very talented.
Yes, I agree.
And she's a self-starter. Why are you on this show now, Mr.
Mr. John Rasiej.
Rasiej?
And my business is www.speaklouderthanwords.com. And I am on the show to encourage people to start using public speaking more effectively. Because one of the tools that seems to have fallen by the wayside in our high-tech society is everyone thinks they're communicating by Facebook, by videos, by YouTube, but face-to-face public speaking is still the most impactful way to get your message across.
Does surveys prove this, or just what, your own personal feelings?
Well, basically, I know there are surveys. I'm not going to try to pull a quote out of the air,
but
what ends up happening, though, is when you're in a room with other people, the reason that public speaking is so valuable is that it's the only time that you are there with the listener to tell what's happening with the communication. You can tell whether they're paying attention.
That's why companies at the end, I know some Fortune 500 people who say they want to meet people. They don't care about Skype, they don't care about the conference call. They got to meet them and get a feel of them still today, and they go by intuition.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Someone comes to you with no background in public speaking. What are the fundamentals that you would relate to them?
Well, the first thing is to find out what their aim is to go out there and speak in public. Are they a business person? Are they just trying to motivate people, inspire people? So what is their aim in public speaking? That's the first thing, to understand what their mindset is about why they want to do public speaking.
It's like being an actor. What do they want?
So you're asking them to form the thoughts in their head.
But just to have a goal in mind, actually. So what are you trying to do as a speaker? When you do anything in life, anything we do, there should be a goal attached to it so we can get a sense of whether we're accomplishing what we want. And once we know what their goal is, then it becomes a case of how do we get your message in such a way that you are connecting with the listeners to the point that the listeners want to pay attention to you.
Because I found, too, on this show, and then when I talk to people, I do some politics. I got elected to a Mercer County community member. But I have found that people have such built-in biases. A lot of times it's not what you say, it's what they hear. And the body language is like 80%.
Absolutely.
So how do you get around that sometimes? I mean, don't you have to know your audience?
Well, you do have to know your audience. And one of the things that you want to do is you want to do some research ahead of time to find out what your audience's pain point is. What is
Pain point or
pain point? What is their pain? What is the type of thing that at 3 o'clock in the morning they may wake up and be in a little bit of a panic? Because one of the mistakes that a lot of speakers make, I actually wrote recently, I was quoted in entrepreneur.com, talking about the political convention.
I get
speeches, for
Entrepreneur
example.
magazine, actually.
Yes,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was, one of the things that really surprised me is many of the speakers, when they would start telling their story, they would just start telling their story without giving the audience a context of why this story would matter to them. So whether it's Chris Christie, Julian Castro, Michelle Obama, if they start telling their story, the audience for the first 2 or 3 minutes is going, okay, but why does this matter to me? A better approach for a speaker is to say, I'm going to tell you this story because I know you're all facing this same type of problem. You're all worried about jobs, or you're all worried about this. So I want to talk to you about my story as it relates to that
So too
problem.
many people talk about not what the audience wants, what they think they want to say, should say.
That's right. And a lot of speakers, the mistake that ends up happening is very often they get a sense that they have to establish their credentials at the top of the speech. And an audience isn't there to hear about you as a speaker, or me as a speaker, or Kurt as a speaker. They're there to have their problem solved. That's really all people want, is solve my problem. I don't care how you do it. If you can solve my problem, I want to hear it.
Another part of this is articulation and clarity of speech, to be able to speak forcefully, directly, and not just mumble around.
That's also true. And also getting rid of that verbal graffiti that so many people have, those ums and you know.
If anyone says like, you know, and like, it's not like, is it, isn't it? I'm not like angry, I'm pissed off, you know, anyway.
I used to do a radio show on WPRB, the Princeton
He got
station.
canned. He got canned from his radio show. how's the radio show doing?
It amazes me, these are people that are going to be going on to a higher profile in life. But it amazed me that hardly any of them was ever working on developing speaking tools, to become an effective public speaker. And they're just sort of just hyperventilating their way through, not giving pauses, and it's like they should approach it as an exercise in public speaking.
No, absolutely. And the thing you mentioned about pauses and everything, it's one of the things that happens for a lot of people. They have a lot of great ideas. Sometimes they try to have too many of them.
Yeah, you
in
jam
one
too many
speech.
things in, yeah.
And before one has landed, before the audience has absorbed point one, they're already on to point two. You have to give people time to connect with what you say.
That's why PowerPoints have been killing people. So much information. What's the latest thing? People would give up sex if they didn't have to have another PowerPoint presentation. It's so much
Speak
very
for
true.
yourself, Adam.
Kurt, you haven't had
The jury has
sex in
spoken.
Kurt, you haven't had sex in 15 years.
That's not what your wife
You're a
said.
eunuch. You're a eunuch. What's the word term, eunuch or something? See, I get to the point.
You certainly do.
But don't some people, I don't want to get too much, I think your points are completely valid. There are the few people who for some reason have that charm, that personality, they can mumble, they can be somewhat inarticulate, but people listen to them.
Yeah, there are some people that just
But-
have a certain charisma.
But that's the exception.
Right. And even those people, very
Like
often,
myself.
they have worked to get that level. I mean,
oh.
Bill Clinton is a wonderful speaker, very folksy, and seems very, very down to earth, as if he could roll out of bed and give a speech. And I am sure, I've never studied with whom he studied, but I'm sure he's...
Can I give you a first-hand story of that?
Sure.
It's so true. Bill, not that he remembers me, when I was in D.C. in 1992, how much time do we have, the Nazi program? 2 minutes?
Oh, my.
No, I think we have to have 3. No, anyway.
You just burned a minute.
Two-minute call. No,
Let's
no,
let's
wait.
skip your story.
No, I got to do it really quick. Bill Clinton, he even practiced down to how different photographer, different shutter speeds, how it will capture him when he's walking. He worked on every part of his body language with his speech and his pronunciation and enunciation. Yeah, to a science.
It's hard to practice public speaking on your own. I mean, it's a weird sensation to just talk to a room where there's
Right.
no one there.
And one of the things, I disagree with a lot of speaking coaches that I've heard give a piece of advice, which is look in a mirror while you practice. And to me, that's terrible advice, because one of the things that you want to do when you're a speaker is you want your focus to be on the audience. But if you're practicing while you're looking in a mirror, you're reinforcing the muscle of your focus is on yourself. And that's the easiest way to start getting things going wrong in a speech. You're watching yourself, you're
I want
thinking
2
about
minutes.
yourself, and so on and so on.
Can I ask quickly,
Please do.
upcoming debate, so what would you tell Romney, again, they don't have a lot of complex issues, they only have 3 minutes. What do you tell Obama or Romney when the upcoming debates?
Well, the first thing is they have to act like they own the stage. They have to act like they belong there. One of the things that happened, for example, to Mitt Romney, there were times when he was behind the podium where it looked like he was physically uncomfortable. If you look physically uncomfortable, that makes the audience uncomfortable watching.
2 words, Mormon underwear.
Well, it could be.
The magic underwear, yes.
But that's one of the things. First, they have to own that. And the second thing is to show that when they phrase their answer to the question, they have to show that they understand why that person in the audience or why that question is being asked.
That's what Clinton was good at.
Yeah, Clinton is
Empathize.
unbelievable.
The empathy, especially with females. I don't even mean, well, who's on next?
Adam, you said this wasn't an amateur show.
No, this is an amateur, this is part of the amazing live spontaneity that I give to this show, and not you. Then who's on next? Irina, yes? Oh, Dick is here. Oh, I would like to talk to you. Will you come back, though, another time?
I would love to come back. I do have an event coming up in Princeton
Please
at
go.
the end of October. It's an event for 10 people to learn how to speak well in public. It's an intensive that's going to be really very valuable, and I encourage people to go to my website to find out more, www.speaklouderthanwords.com.
It's a good promotion, too. It's a good
Thanks
idea.
very much.
SpeakLouderThanWords.com.
That's the name,
And-
and I appreciate the time.
And I hope you come back. We can talk more.
I look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.